Welcome to the Tuesday Weekend, the podcast for those people whose eating habits change completely when the weather turns colder. I am your host, Josh Hobson. With us is our regular Saturday night bartender, Nick Parkin. Nick, how's San Diego this fine Tuesday?
It is gorgeous outside, as it's supposed to be in San Diego. It should not be cloudy or horrible here ever.
No. Yeah.
It's a nice, beautiful 70 degrees.
Perfect. This week, I wanted to talk about another subject that a lot of people have very strong emotions about, soup. As the days get shorter and the nights are getting cold, many of us turn to soup. For years, I've joked that the best part about being married to a chef is that there's always soup in the fridge. So with us to help talk about soup is Denen Oliver. Among my cooking friends, Denen takes her soups and stews very seriously. Dee has spent a couple of years as a sous chef at a famous ski resort. She's cooked at resorts, a hotel, a country club, a national park, and a couple of grocery stores. Soup was an important factor in all of them. Dee is currently the sous chef at a highly rated restaurant and food truck in the Eastern Sierras of California. Welcome, Dee.
Hello.
And fun fact, just like last week's guest, Aurora, you were at my wedding. In fact, now that I think about it, you were the girl in the pretty white dress.
Hello, everyone. I'm his wife.
Yeah.
So he'll be well behaved today.
Oh, yeah.
So, soup. Larousse Gastronomique, the highly regarded food encyclopedia, defines soup as a liquid, savory food served at the beginning of a meal or as a light meal in itself, though it does go on to acknowledge soups that make a heavier meal, such as chowders.
Let me ask you, Nick.
Yeah.
What is your favorite soup? And what is your favorite soup story?
I got a couple of favorite soups, I guess. One of them probably doesn't count as a soup, but honestly, I used to go to Frank's in Salt Lake just for soup.
Oh, perfect.
The last time I was there was unfortunately a couple of years ago. I've been back to Utah for a while, but it was actually a chilled mushroom, truffle, white chocolate. It was fantastic.
Very interesting.
Going to that restaurant, I found that just order the soup, whatever it is, and it'll be great. I really like pozole.
Oh, yeah, that's
lot.
a good one.
My sister-in-law makes a fantastic one. Anytime I go out to Arizona, she makes about 4 gallons of it, and I bring 2 gallons back. I mean, I really, really like that soup. The one I don't know if it counts or not because you're the chefs and you know more than I do. I like ramen. I mean, there's an awesome ramen house right down the street from me that then like when it gets a little colder and stuff, it's kind of cool because it's a wide open bar. It's also super neon. It's almost like eating ramen at Blade Runner.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like the wind blowing through, so it's a little chilly, but you're eating a really warm soup and stuff. You know, that's kind of how I see soups like that. It's just like it's a cooler day, like winter's coming around, and it's nice to have a nice bowl of soup.
I feel like for food, atmosphere is half the story, right?
Yeah.
So when you have soup and you're having the good atmosphere, like the cold weather, the warming feeling, or like as you said, when you had the ramen, it was like Blade Runner because it was all the neon. And I would say ramen is a soup because of the broth. There's so much time and effort invested into that broth and the 5 steps, the 5 ideals of ramen with the tare, with broth, the noodles, the toppings, all that. I would just call it a soup that would also double as a meal, like a full meal.
It does.
As compared to just an appetizer.
I mean, and pho would land in that category very easily.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We love our noodle soups here.
Yeah. You know, and my mom makes the chicken noodle soup out of the chicken carcass and stuff with the real bone broth that it's made from the chicken.
Yeah.
The big, thick homemade noodles and stuff.
It's so comforting.
And really one of the few dishes that I do not try to compete with my dad about, that because most of it, I've been a professional chef. He has not. Most things I cook better than he does. But he loves roast duck, as do I. Big fan. And he will absolutely every time make stock out of that, make fresh noodles, and his duck noodle soup is really as good as any of the soups I've put out. It hits every time.
I guess the next time I see your dad, I'm going to have to ask him to make me some duck noodle soup.
Yes.
All right. That sounds great.
That sounds great, actually.
Yeah. And,
again, growing up in Utah and actually hunting ducks.
Yeah.
Sure.
Using them for food and all that. But yeah, that sounds fantastic. I wish they would have done that. That would have been really good.
So one of the soups that I grew up on, I would cook a lot for my family because my dad was very busy. But every year we would get venison from one of his coworkers, and it would be a whole venison that would feed us for the whole year. And so one of the soups that I ended up making a lot was a venison chili. So I would get the ground deer and I would make the soup, and I always would make a whole pot worth. So my dad would have several portions to take to lunch, and we always ate it with rice. There was always so much rice in my childhood. I have no idea why, but rice was our main thing that we would eat with venison chili. And if we didn't have rice, then we would have cornbread. And I would always put like jalapenos and cheese in the cornbread. Because, of course, with soup, you need to have your accoutrements, right?
Oh, yeah, you do. There's one also that I was just reminded of because it's one I've eaten a lot in my life because the places I've worked, it's just clam chowder.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when I worked at Oyster Bar in Salt Lake City, they had like the best clam chowder in town by far. Just finished up a 6-year stint at Blue Water Boathouse on Coronado, also known for having absolutely incredible chili or chowder. And, you know, you get to work, you're kind of in a rush. You got to grab a bite to eat before the shift starts. Half a loaf of bread and bowl of chowder.
Yeah.
It's always been a good one. And I've been kind of spoiled because I've worked at so many places that serve it that when I go out, I don't generally order it.
Oh, yeah. You're like,
yeah, I have chowder. I'll forget, hey, I'm not working at a seafood restaurant anymore. I don't have chowder all the time anymore. Place down the street, Ironside has an incredible chowder. They've got a little bacon in it as well. It's a little bit different. They're a little bit more of a kind of a forward-thinking seafood place, but they have these rolls that go with the chowder.
yeah.
That are as good as anything that Red Lobster's ever put out. I mean, I'll order the chowder on happy hour just to have the roll.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, the roll's great. I'm dipping it in the chowder. The roll's gone. I'm like, okay, now I have to eat the little cup of chowder. But
Oh, absolutely.
it's so good when you get the sides right and something with it. The broth is great. You're just dipping the bread in it. Yeah. You know, that's what soup is.
Yeah.
That's, you know, in stews too. And mom makes the nice beef stew with all the vegetables and stuff and the really thick roux in it and all that. And you've got the nice fresh cut homemade bread. Soups are great, but when you've got the one little thing with it that makes it that much better, like you were saying, the accoutrements, that's a big deal with that.
Oh, absolutely. That little carb addition, I'm not sure. That's the nicer way to call it.
Right?
But you need that thing to either dip or wipe the bowl when you're done. Yes. It's an essential part of the soup experience, I feel.
100%.
That's really a lot of things about soup. It's so homey. It's so comforting, right?
Exactly.
So, like, even in a restaurant experience, like, you get a good bowl of soup, like you were saying in Salt Lake. It really means a lot. And soup means a lot to a lot of people. Like, I worked in Park City, and I was working at one of the grocery stores there, and our order of soup didn't come in. And we can't have that because everyone came in for soup. Yeah. So between me and the sous chef at this grocery store, we just made 4 soups from scratch so we could have soup for today because we knew the importance of soup for our customers. So yes, in some circumstances, like for ski resorts, as we all know, Park City, and that type of deal, like in the middle of the winter, soup is really important. It brings to the ambiance, brings to the comfort. You go out, you go on your ski run, you do your snow play, and you want a cup of soup.
It brings to trade in ski towns when someone rolls in, hey, I got some of that soup from up the street. You want to give me a beer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll buy you a beer for a bowl of soup right now. That sounds great. It's cold. It's like 25 degrees outside. That sounds fantastic. My buddy Mark worked up at the coffee shop, and people bring him food all the time for coffee. He's like, I never buy food. They just bring me sandwiches and soup all day, and I just like buy them a cup of coffee.
So at the Boneyard, what kind of soup did you make?
Something with a bone broth.
Frequently, yes. I always had to have a soup of the day going, and it would really range. I didn't really do like a ramen or a pho just because
you worked at a gastropub.
I worked at a gastropub, and the pickup on that is just, you know, that was a little out of what we were doing. But a lot of pozole was a pretty frequent one. I had one that I ran quite a bit that I guess is somewhat like a zuppa Toscana or something. I called it my vaguely Italian pork soup, and it had pork and tomatoes and spinach and onions and garlic. It wasn't really like quite a Italian wedding. Sometimes there'd be fagioli in there. I don't know. It's what I had on hand.
It was a Josh soup.
It was a Josh soup.
It was a Josh soup.
But then, you know, frequently one of the things I made good use of while making soups was the grill, and not just for grilling like steak in my meat-based soups, but I did a grilled carrot soup that came out great. I did a grilled butternut squash. Instead of roasting it, I have the grill right there, and you get a little smokiness on there.
I have done your grilled carrot soup, yes.
Yeah,
I've used that recipe.
Yeah.
And then speaking of soups, what's a good place to start for soups?
Well, now you're getting us into what I want to talk about in the next segment, and that's stocks. Well, and that's how to make soup.
Yeah.
So, in fact, all right, how about we take a break here, and we will come back and we will talk about how to make soup.